South Carolina Congresswoman and member of the House Oversight and Reform Committee and House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, Nancy Mace. Congresswoman, good morning. Great to see you. Let's continue the conversation about taxes right now, because there are a lot of constituents, some of yours out there, who are against some of these proposals and think that they will have a chilling effect on the economy, on their families, and how we live our lives as Americans. Your thoughts on this?
I think most of America, whether you're Republican or Democrat, are going to be against tax hikes. And when you look at what the Biden administration is trying to do, I can't think of a worse idea in the middle of a pandemic than to raise taxes. And they're using key buzzwords, to tax the rich and to pay their fair share, that companies should pay their fair share. But somebody has to pay that bill, and that's on the backs of hardworking Americans.
And Congresswoman, the first thing I think of is you're talking about raising taxes at the same time that you're passing these massive, massive spending packages. We can talk about the $1.9 trillion. So many economists and market participants that look at these things really carefully say we don't need a lot of that spending. A lot of it wasn't related to the coronavirus directly. And so how do you kind of sell this to the American people? Look, we're just spending, 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 and we want you to pay more.
Well, the bottom line is you cannot sell this to the American people. Over 90% of that package had nothing to do with COVID-19 relief. You saw Chuck Schumer ask for a bridge in New York. You saw Nancy Pelosi asking for underground rail to Silicon Valley in her backyard. All wasteful spending. And don't get me wrong, this spending has been a problem on both sides of the aisle. Washington has a spending problem, not a revenue problem. We've seen states, even in the middle of a pandemic, getting record revenues. And when we talk about pulling people out of poverty, the last thing you want to do is raise taxes and keep spending. We're only going to slow down our ability to get out of and recover economically from COVID-19 with these spending plans, with tax hikes. It's going to hurt wages. You're going to see fewer companies starting fewer jobs at lower wages, and it's going to hurt every single person in this country.
Yeah, and when you really itemize and look at what some of the spending proposals have been, some of them that you outlined, you think about, you can spend to invest. As a market participant, you can kind of understand that. You spend to invest, it could create jobs, projects, whatnot. That's not necessarily the case here. Some of these programs are not going to give back to the economy.
No, they're not. And they're going to keep people on the government dole. And when the government is responsible for you or your family, you have less incentive to work. You look at the COVID-19 package we just did. Well, we just incentivized more unemployment with that package. And I know that there are employers in South Carolina who are desperate to find employees. And when you talk about raising the corporate tax to 21 to 28%, if you read the fine print, it's actually much higher than it was several years ago before President Trump eliminated much of the corporate tax rates. You're going to send jobs overseas. There will be an exodus from places like South Carolina and all over the country of jobs going overseas.
And that was specifically what President Trump said, that he was trying to reverse. Those plans were in place, and here we go again. I mean, the next thing that we're watching, Congresswoman, is the midterms, right? We're looking forward, as we always do, and President Trump saying that the GOP has a, quote, very good chance of taking back the House. Your thoughts? Do you believe that the Republicans will see some gains in 2022?
If we continue to fight for and work for the policies that President Trump and his administration were successful on, those were the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, where we had record unemployment for men and women of all colors and genders being successful, businesses through the roof. We saw the Operation Warp Speed with the vaccination. The reason COVID-19 cases are down are because of the speed with which we produced a vaccination under his leadership and his administration. We saw bipartisan prison reform. We saw so many good things happening. If those are the values and the things that we fight for going forward in the midterms, if we show that we can be fiscally conservative, that we will not raise your taxes, then Republicans absolutely can win back the House in 2 years. And I believe the Biden administration and Nancy Pelosi specifically, because this is Pelosi's party and Biden is just playing in it, right? She's in charge. Make no mistake, and the decisions they're making are going to hurt the American worker and hurt American people. We have an opportunity not only to win back in 2 years the majority, but we're going to have a lot to talk about in 4 when we have another presidential election.
And Congresswoman, you make such a wonderful point, because when President Biden was campaigning, he really tried to appeal to the moderate voter, but there were so many people who said you have to be careful because those around him are the more progressive left, and he's going to have to pander to those policies, and that is, to a certain extent, what we are seeing right now. We really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jackie.
We'll talk to you soon.